You have a list. You've had it for weeks, maybe months. Tasks that need doing, projects that matter, deadlines approaching. You know exactly what you should be doing. You've planned it, scheduled it, told yourself today is the day, and then you don't do it. You scroll, you clean, you suddenly remember emails that need answering. You find yourself reorganizing your desk for the third time this week. Anything, everything, except the thing that actually matters. And the guilt is crushing. The shame, the self-hatred. You call yourself lazy, undisciplined, a failure. You wonder what's wrong with you. Why can't you just do the thing? Why can't you be like other people who just start and finish and move on? You've tried everything. Productivity systems, apps, accountability partners, motivational videos, and still you procrastinate. Still, you watch your life pass by while you sit paralyzed by tasks you know you could do if you just started. But what if I told you that procrastination has nothing to do with laziness? What if the real reason you can't start is so psychologically devastating that your unconscious mind would rather destroy your life than let you see it? Today, we're going to expose the truth behind chronic procrastination. And I'm warning you now, this won't be comfortable, because we're going to reveal what Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, and other depth psychologists discovered about the terror hiding beneath your inability to act. We're going to show you that procrastination isn't a time management problem. It's not about discipline or motivation. It's about fear, a specific, primal, identity-threatening fear that you've been running from your entire life. And until you face that fear, until you understand what you're really protecting yourself from, you'll keep procrastinating no matter how many productivity hacks you try. Before we begin this uncomfortable journey into the psychology of avoidance, if you've ever felt paralyzed by a task you know you should do, if you've watched deadlines pass while you did nothing, if you've hated yourself for procrastinating but kept doing it anyway, then subscribe. Join a community learning that procrastination isn't about time, it's about terror. And comment below, what's the one thing you've been avoiding? Because naming it is the first step to understanding why. Let's start by destroying the most common lie about procrastination, that it's about laziness, that you're just not disciplined enough, that you need to try harder, be more motivated, have more willpower. This is complete nonsense. And it's psychologically damaging because it keeps you focused on the wrong problem. You're not procrastinating because you're lazy. In fact, procrastination requires enormous energy. Think about it. The mental gymnastics you perform to avoid the task, the elaborate justifications, the complex system of distractions you've built, the constant background anxiety that follows you everywhere, the guilt that never stops, the shame that colors everything. This isn't laziness. This is your psyche working overtime to protect you from something it perceives as more dangerous than the consequences of not doing the task. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He wrote about what he called psychological resistance, the way the unconscious mind erects barriers against anything that threatens the ego's sense of safety. And for chronic procrastinators, starting the task feels like a threat, not to your physical safety, to something deeper, your sense of who you are, your identity, your worth as a human being. Let me show you how this works. Imagine you have a project, something important. Maybe it's writing, or starting a business, or creating art, or even just organizing your life. And every time you think about starting, you feel this wave of anxiety, this tightness in your chest, this voice that says, not now, later, when you're ready, when conditions are better, when you feel more inspired. What's really happening in that moment? Sigmund Freud would say you're experiencing what he called the reality principle, colliding with the pleasure principle. Part of you knows this task needs to be done. That's the reality principle. the adult part, the responsible part. But another part, the unconscious part, is screaming danger. Because doing this task means confronting something you've been avoiding. And what is that something? It's the possibility that you're not good enough, that you'll fail, that you'll do your best and it still won't be good enough, that you'll be exposed as a fraud, that everyone will see that you're not as capable, smart, talented, or worthy as you've been pretending to be. This is the terror beneath procrastination, not the task itself, but what completing the task might reveal about you. This is why perfectionism and procrastination are so deeply connected. They're two sides of the same wound. The perfectionist part sets impossible standards. If I'm going to do it, it has to be perfect. And the procrastinating part ensures you never have to test whether you can meet those standards, because as long as you don't start, you can maintain the fantasy that you could do it perfectly if you wanted to. You just haven't gotten around to it yet. But the moment you actually do it, you risk discovering that your best isn't good enough, that you're not as talented as you hoped, that you're average, mediocre, just another person doing their best and falling short. And for someone whose entire identity is built on potential, on what they could do if they just applied themselves, this is annihilation. Better to never find out. Better to keep the fantasy alive. Better to procrastinate forever than to risk that devastating confrontation with your own limitations. Ernest Becker, in his Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Denial of Death, wrote about what he called the vital lie. The story we tell ourselves to make existence bearable. For many people, that vital lie is, I could be great if I tried. I have so much potential. I'm just waiting for the right moment. And procrastination is the mechanism that keeps this lie intact. Because if you never really try, you never have to discover whether it's true. This is why procrastination feels safer than action. Not because you're avoiding work, but because you're avoiding truth. The truth that you might not be special, that you might be ordinary, that your dreams might be bigger than your abilities, that you might fail despite your best effort. And this truth is so threatening to the ego, to your sense of self, that your unconscious mind would rather destroy your career, your relationships, your life, than let you face it. Rollo May, the existential psychologist, wrote about the anxiety of creativity. He observed that creating anything, even just organizing your life or completing a task, requires you to bring something new into existence, to impose your will on reality, to say this matters, I matter, my effort matters. And this is terrifying, because what if you're wrong? What if it doesn't matter? What if you don't matter? So you procrastinate, and in procrastinating, you stay in the realm of potential, of what could be. You never have to confront what actually is. You never have to see your work objectively. You never have to face other people's judgment. You never have to discover your real level of ability. You stay safe in the space between intention and action, where dreams live, where potential is infinite, where you can still be anything because you haven't actually become anything yet. Carl Jung called this the Puer Aeternus, the eternal child, the person who lives in perpetual potential but never actualizes, who has 1,000 ideas but never executes, who's always about to start their real life but never does. And procrastination is the primary mechanism of the Puer. It's how they maintain the fantasy of unlimited possibility while avoiding the risk of limited reality. But here's what makes this so insidious. Procrastination doesn't feel like self-protection. It feels like self-sabotage. You hate yourself for it. You feel weak, lazy, broken. You don't realize that you're actually protecting something. Your ego, your sense of self, your vital lie. You think you're just failing to do the task, but you're actually succeeding at avoiding the thing that terrifies you more than failure, which is trying your hardest and still not being good enough. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and founded logotherapy, discovered something crucial about human motivation. He found that people need meaning more than they need happiness, that suffering is bearable if it has meaning, but meaninglessness is unbearable, and procrastination creates a specific kind of meaningless suffering. You're not suffering for a cause. You're not being tested by circumstances beyond your control. You're suffering from your own inaction. And that's the worst kind of suffering because it's self-inflicted and pointless. But Frankl would say there's a hidden meaning in your procrastination. It's your unconscious mind trying to protect you from a deeper suffering. The suffering of confronting your limitations, of measuring yourself against reality and possibly coming up short. Your procrastination is saying better to suffer from inaction than to suffer from the truth about yourself. Now let's talk about the other layer. Because it's not just fear of inadequacy, there's something deeper, something that connects to your very existence. Jung wrote about what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we don't want to see. And for many chronic procrastinators, what's in the shadow isn't just the fear of being inadequate, it's the fear of being powerful. This sounds paradoxical. Why would you be afraid of your own power? Because power requires responsibility. If you actually did the things you're capable of, if you actually lived up to your potential, you'd have to take ownership of your life. You'd have no more excuses. No more "I could have, if only." You'd have to be the person you claim you could be. And that person has to show up consistently, has to make hard choices, has to live with the consequences of their actions. This is terrifying, because as long as you're procrastinating, you're not responsible for your life not working. It's just because you haven't started yet. But once you start, once you actually do the work, if your life still doesn't work, if you still don't achieve what you wanted, then what? Then there's no one to blame, no excuses left. Just you and the reality of who you actually are versus who you imagined you could be. Marianne Williamson wrote that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. And for chronic procrastinators, this rings true. Because with great power comes great responsibility. And maybe you've been hiding from that responsibility your entire life, using procrastination as a shield, as permission to stay small, to stay safe, to never have to fully show up and risk everything. Freud would add another layer. He'd talk about the death drive, the part of the psyche that actually seeks destruction. That's drawn to inertia, to stasis, to the end of striving. And procrastination has a death drive quality to it. You're not moving toward life. You're moving toward nothing, toward the safety of non-existence. Each day you procrastinate is a day you're not fully alive, not fully engaged, not fully real. And there's a strange comfort in that, because being fully alive means being fully vulnerable. It means risking pain, disappointment, failure, rejection. But staying in procrastination, in the limbo between intention and action, you're protected. Nothing can really hurt you because you're not really present. You're in a kind of psychological suspended animation, safe, dead, unchanged. Now here's where it gets really dark. What if you've built your entire identity around being the person with potential who just can't seem to get started? What if that's become who you are? The smart one who never lived up to it, the talented one who never finished anything, the one with all the ideas but no execution. This identity, as painful as it is, might be the only sense of self you have. And if you actually stopped procrastinating, if you actually started doing things, finishing things, becoming successful, you'd lose that identity. You'd have to become someone new, someone you don't know, someone without the excuse of unused potential. And that identity death can feel more terrifying than continuing to suffer in the identity you know. Jung called this the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are. But individuation requires death, the death of who you've been, the death of your old self. And your procrastination might be your unconscious mind's way of refusing that death, of clinging to the familiar, even when the familiar is painful. Because at least it's known. At least you know how to be the person who procrastinates. You don't know how to be the person who executes. So what's the answer? How do you break free from chronic procrastination once you understand these psychological depths? First, you have to stop treating it as a time management problem. Stop buying productivity courses and apps thinking that the right system will fix you. They won't. Because the problem isn't your system. It's your relationship with yourself. It's the terror you're avoiding. Second, you have to face the fear directly, not by trying to overcome it, but by acknowledging it. By saying, yes, I'm afraid that if I do this, I'll discover I'm not as good as I thought. Yes, I'm terrified of being mediocre. Yes, I'm scared of responsibility. Yes, I'd rather keep the fantasy than face the reality. This acknowledgement doesn't make the fear disappear, but it takes away its unconscious power. You're no longer being controlled by something you can't see. Third, you have to separate your worth from your performance. This is the deepest work. As long as your entire sense of self depends on being special, talented, better than average, you'll keep procrastinating to protect that fragile ego. But if you can accept that your worth as a human being has nothing to do with your achievements, that you're valuable just for existing, then you can start taking action without it being an identity threat. Viktor Frankl would say, you need to find meaning beyond yourself, a purpose larger than your ego. When you're working for something that matters more than your personal success or failure, procrastination loses its grip, because it's not about you anymore. It's about the work, the contribution, the difference you're making, and that shifts everything. Fourth, you have to practice what Jung called active imagination, building a relationship with your unconscious, having a dialogue with the part of you that procrastinates, not trying to defeat it or overcome it, but understanding what it's trying to protect, what it's afraid of, what it needs to feel safe enough to let you move forward. This isn't weakness, it's integration. And finally, you have to start. Not perfectly, not when you're ready, not when conditions are ideal. Just start. Small, messy, imperfect. Because the only way to prove to your unconscious mind that action isn't death is to take action and survive it. To do the thing badly and discover you're still okay. To fail at something and realize failure didn't kill you. To be mediocre and find that mediocrity is actually liberating because it frees you from the prison of potential. Ernest Becker wrote that the irony of man's condition is that the deepest need is to be free of the anxiety of death and annihilation, but it's life itself which awakens it. And procrastination is your attempt to be free of the anxiety of living, of being real, of being seen. But the only way through that anxiety is through, not around, not by hiding, but by facing it, by doing the thing that terrifies you, by discovering that you survive it. Your procrastination is not a character flaw. It's a defense mechanism. It's your psyche's attempt to protect you from truths it thinks will destroy you. But those truths won't destroy you. What's destroying you is the avoidance, the years passing, the potential never actualized, the life never lived, the constant background anxiety, the shame, the self-hatred. That's what's actually killing you, not the truth, the protection from the truth. So maybe it's time to stop protecting yourself, to take the risk, to find out who you really are when you're not hiding behind procrastination, to discover whether you're as inadequate as you fear or as powerful as you hope. to let the Puer die so the adult can be born, to trade unlimited potential for limited reality, and to find out that reality, even with its limitations, is so much better than fantasy. Because it's real, it's yours, it's the only life you actually have, and it's waiting for you to stop preparing and just begin.